Greetings, everyone.
Peace and blessings, family.
We're here again for week number 3 of our Carter G. Woodson challenge. So, give thanks to all of those who have been following this competition for the last few weeks and for anyone who's participated and joined in.
Yeah, fantastic, family. We've had a lot of fun with this challenge. It's great to see just how much people have engaged with the idea, and it's very, very important that we keep, the spirits of our ancestors alive. Imagine a world where we may not have any such commemoration and remembrance. Can you imagine how, lost those who've been labeled as black or African will be? Because nearly, if not all of us, because the knowledge has been denied us, we would never know what any of us may have contributed to history and how important it is that we are to ourselves. So this initiative that Carter G. Woodson started however many years ago, it's a very important initiative that we need to keep going forward. Absolutely. We know, be it 4 or 5 years ago, Black history was getting quite a lot of slack. Every much or a majority, the discourse around Black history was that it had become too civil rights centric, as if that was the only aspect of Black history that mattered to African and African descended people globally. Because as you know, our struggles are worldwide. As a global people, originally and even post our dispersion across the world, our contribution to history is vital. In a sense, we can argue there is no history without us in the picture. Okay, so yes, beyond that criticism, as I said, for me, especially in England, we can see how we've moved Black history beyond, as I said, just the civil rights era. Yeah, and these days we talk about things like the Benin bronzes. We talk about the extent of the Great Benin Wall and why everyone knows about the Great Wall of China, but hardly anybody discusses just how impressive the wall around ancient Benin was. No, now people talk about the level of detail and artistry involved in making the Benin bronzes. There's discussion about cultural artifacts, such as the obelisks that have been taken to various major city centers, London included. So we've actually, I would say that the vision that Carter G. Woodson had is actually now being realized even more so, because a focus on even civil rights again puts African/Black history solely in the space of struggle. And all that we've ever done in our lives is not just struggle against oppression. We have been very creative. We have been inventors. We have been great scientists and astronomers. Much of the things that we use and take for granted, much of the convenience, even this very internet we're using, when you check the history, has had some significant African/Black contributions to it. So it's important that we continue to in a sense, regurgitate and reaffirm ourselves by learning as much of our history as possible. And the one aspect of our history that we know, which still gets largely stigmatized and everyone shies away from, is our spiritual corpus. So that's what we've dedicated this month to, trying to learn more about what our spiritual knowledge systems involve and how we can engage even deeper with them. So, welcome once again. This is the third week. Next Sunday will be our last Sunday for this particular challenge, and then we move forward from there. So, welcome once again. Happy to have you all here.
And just to reiterate on what Dalian just said, um, by telling our stories, we keep those ancestral memories alive. We empower ourselves. We provide ourselves with not just knowledge that is for mental stimulation, but it also awakens that essence within us. It brings our ancestors to the fore. We can tap into that ancestral memory. So, really acknowledging our history and all aspects of it are very empowering to self. So give thanks to everyone tuned in right now. As usual, when we do this, we take a Q&A. We'll have a nice conversation. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we will announce the winner later on. So just for those who are not aware, the question for this week was, what is the term used to denote spirit in the Akan language? So we already asked everyone to enter by emailing us. Please note it is too late now because we already have the entries added to here, our little prize winning draw, which will be announced later on. But give thanks for everyone who's here right now. The River says blessings. Thank you very much. And truth. Okay. Okay, so Sandra said, what is the theme of today's conversation around Black history? I think you just answered my question. Well, to be honest, Ancestral Voices always deals with spirituality. That's what we do. However, today's particular show it's actually titled Be a Force of Nature, which is the prize that will be given at the end to whoever the winner is, which is part of our Transformative Self series. And that particular episode, which is part 1 of the 6-part series, deals with humanity as a force of nature as it is documented in African cosmologies. So that's what the prize will be, and that's what today's theme will be. So we'll be discussing how we are ultimately forces of nature, the relationship we have with nature, and how we can enhance our whole spiritual knowledge and experience by understanding the connection we have with nature. So that is today's theme in a nutshell. Do you want to add?
Yeah, so we will be playing an excerpt from the course itself, the Transformative Self. This course came about, I was listening to a neuropsychologist on one of these YouTube lectures, and he started talking about human beings as a planetary force. That's the term he used. And obviously, before then, I'm familiar with some of the work of this brother. He's a he's an astrophysicist. His name, I'll come back to his name in a second. But when I heard, because this guy, he's I believe he's Canadian. His name also slips me, but as we're going to have the conversation, I'll bring it back. But in listening to his YouTube lecture and him using the word he didn't use human being anymore. He said planetary force. So then I was sitting there, obviously familiar with the African cosmological concept of the human being, and really realizing or knowing for us that human beings in the African understanding are considered. This is why in the theology we say, the human being and nature are the same. There's no separation between the human being and nature, because our ancestors have also understood this truth from a very long time ago. So hearing this Western empirical scientist use that term, I said to myself, okay, so here we have very soon this will become a new discovery. Yeah, and it's something that only Western scientists have known. It becomes new knowledge in this century, but then this is Asian knowledge. And so I went back into our research and started digging out aspects of philosophies, practices, which identify how Africans have been familiar with the concept, not just that we're planetary forces, but that we're really universal forces. Yes, and there's no difference between us and the Orisha or Bosom or Nete archetypes that we communicate with. Yes, so I looked for that evidence, and then we compiled them into a 6-part course series. Okay, so I'm going to play an excerpt from that, and by the time that excerpt is also over, I will have the names of these eminent scientists who provided that inspiration to put this course together. Framework. We understand that missing energetic aspect to be what we can generally call our spirit self. This 25 grams that disappears, and to date, modern science can't even tell us where it disappears to, why it disappears, or even what its constituent makeup is. Okay, and as I've already mentioned, in the African cosmological framework, we understand that missing energetic aspect to be what we can generally call
our spirit self. Now, the inherent nature of human beings to always be in a transformative state references primarily that we are first and foremost spirit beings, beings of energy. So again, we are
Make
forces.
sure your fingers are
And
audience.
in each moment and second, we are agents of transformation for a range of systems within our very self. The first one we can look at is the digestive system. Okay, and what the digestive system allows us to do is we're able to take in bioorganic mass that we call food, and that food then sustains our body. But then, as this food we are drawing out its nutrients, it goes through this system, this process we call the digestive process or system, and eventually leads to what we call waste. And there's even a bit of a conundrum there, because what we call waste is actually treasure for the plants and the vegetation, the same thing that we rely on for sustenance. Yeah, we then give them a treasure that we call waste, and then that helps them to grow and then feed us back. So again, remember in the first slide, we talk about the universe existing in a state of symbiosis. Yeah, just right next to us, we do that all the time. Again, some things sometimes, perhaps because they're so obvious and simple, we just never really pick up on them. Yeah. So in each and every second, we already have this transformative state existing within ourselves that we call the digestive system. But that's not the only one. The one I personally find the most fascinating is what we call the neural network or the mind, right? And its connection to our circulatory network and the whole of our body, and in a sense keeping our very bodies alive. What I like about the neural network is because it makes very clear our essential state of transformation. Because you see the image that we see here on the left, where we see all what looks like static and bits of lightning bolts running through these ligaments or kind of cords and threads. That is the reality of your mind, the reality of your thinking. This is what's going on in your head as we speak. There is constant electric synaptic communication going on that then aids us. That A aids us in thinking, and B is transformed into the image on the right, what we call the shapes and the forms that we perceive in our external reality through these portals we call our eyes. Okay, what the actual shape and nature of our thoughts has no resemblance to what is then transformed into, because we see visuals when in reality there's only electricity really. So there's a transformation between the electrical communication from the left into a visual form that we perceive. That's another state of transformation. Something existing in one different state altogether and being transformed into another state. And this happens in perhaps the most important of our faculties, our mind. Yeah? It's that what gives us our ability to form a perception.
Okay. Okay, so we hope you found that little excerpt informative. So that just gives you an idea of the topic for today and also the prize that will be given away at the end of today's session.
Yeah. So family, if you can just type in there to let us be clear that you could hear and see the presentation, because the software we use has changed, so we can't actually hear the sound once we do a presentation. So if you can just let us know in the comments that you could hear, and then we can we can start taking any questions that you may have about what you just heard.
Okay, so to avoid dead silence whilst we're waiting. Okay, great. Erica McBorough says, yes, it's good. So glad to know that you could hear and that all is well with that. So thank you, Eric, as well for confirming.
That's beautiful.
Perfect. So go ahead.
Yeah, so the brother, the astrophysicist, his name, because I always mix up his name because he has Tyson in the name. I end up mixing him up with some of our other family who are, I guess, celebrities who have the name Tyson. So his name is Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist. And when you read him, and then particularly Jordan Peterson is the other neuro. He's actually a clinical psychologist, but those who deal with the mind, you start to realize that they've now started entertaining and are actually putting on board, on record, that we need to look at the human being beyond flesh and blood. And as we know in the African corpus, your body is just a container. It's what actually animates that container that is, in a sense, the real driving force. So when you're able to get a better understanding of that driving force, and how that force inner is also related to the forces outer, and how they have a space for interfacing, then you realize that there's a lot more that you can do and should be doing with your environment. Yes, and all the other forces that are available within this space that we call the ether, or our environment, or the external space to ourselves. So that's where the motivation for the course came from. So part one deals with our physical component as well as our spiritual component. What exactly does the word spirit, when we're using that term spirit, what does it denote? What possibilities does it present to us as living physical beings as well? Okay, and then in part two we look at it's called the conceptions of the creator. There we look at African creation accounts, and explore them within what we know now as, again, science or quantum science in the Western framework. Because then what we start to see is we don't really have myths as we would like to call some of these religious accounts, yeah, like we might find in certain scriptures, because you start to see that what the African discourse is to do with are scientific concepts, and things like mitosis or meiosis, yeah, cell replication, especially. So it's to take our understanding beyond seeing the African knowledge systems as just religious expressions, but to understand them for as to why many a scholar prefer the term a natural science, because it's very scientific in nature. So we explore some of these creative accounts, from the Akan to the Bakongo. We go across into Asian Kemet and look or reinvestigate these creation accounts and show their scientific references, if you will. Okay, and then by the third, we look at the African conceptions of the self, because in African understanding, we have at least 5 aspects to yourself, your spiritual self. So your spirit is not just a single entity. Within your spirit, you have your ancestral self or your ancestral guardian, as an example. You have your spiritual double, what you know as Ori in the Yoruba system, or your Kra or your Hebrew in the Akan, so on and so forth. So we look at these aspects to the self that we know in the African corpus. I believe part 4 then looks at specifically, because out of these 5 aspects of your spiritual self, the most important is the one that's almost like your GPS system that guides you to your purpose as to why you're existing. Okay, what we call your divine destiny. So we look at that in greater detail and break it down. We look at particular rituals which are have been identified over the years that people can use to reawaken that blueprint or that consciousness within our very selves. That's what part 4 is. Then in part 5 we look at ancestorhood.
Part 3 was personhood, which is the self. Part 4 is ancestor, the divine destiny.
Okay, so part 4 is divine destiny. Thanks for that. And then part 5 is your ancestorhood. Okay, where we look at the concept of your ancestral guardian or self, and how that again relates to aspects of yourself, your spirit, and how you live and enact your purpose in life. Then in part 6, we look at it's called the Ubuntu universe, where we look at how your spirit or source of energy is connected to that which is external, yep, in the universe, and how you can use your internal energy or spirit to connect externally and help you traverse through your life. So these are the six aspects to the transformative self and what is covered. So, we look forward to any questions. I'm happy to repeat them again because that's a long list of stuff that I rattled on. But that's is part one that you're going to, the lucky winner will be winning today so that they can engage with the knowledge and information therein.
I'm just amazed. This is the most calm and quiet I've ever seen the audience. So feel free to ask us any questions. That's why we're here. We offer these lives of an opportunity to obviously connect with us here at Ancestral Voices. And whenever we have guests on the show, it's an opportunity to also speak with them. So if you have any questions along your spiritual path that you may feel that you just want a bit of a guidance to, assist you with, then we are open to all that too. So please put your comments through in the chat, and then we will discuss them out loud and have a conversation. All right. So is there anything else you want to discuss so far while we're here waiting for something to come through?
No, not particularly. Perhaps you can tell them about your next live that you're going to have, who's on board, what's any particular topics that you might be discussing.
The next lives, what I'll have to do is get back into the dates and times. So I'm not going to talk about that just yet, actually. What I will do is update all future lives. We do have some amazing guests lined up for March. So as you can see, this has been us for the whole month. So you've been with Dalian and I. So we're the faces behind Ancestral Voices, just in case you don't know. Obviously, when we do have our live shows, we have these amazing speakers who speak on their own spiritual experiences. Plus, we interview people from different traditions as well. So if you do want to know maybe about, Sangomas in Southern Africa, or if you want to learn about Yoruba Ifa, we have practitioners across the globe who come on here and share wonderful information. So I will be updating our website soon with our next interviews, but definitely stay tuned. And Sandra Harper says, this is so interesting. Can you give me information to purchase these presentations? So sure, no problem at all. So I believe I put it in the chat.
I think it's in the chat, Sandra, but we can put it in there.
I've put it again. There's the link I've just put in the chat. That is actually for Transformative Self Part 1, which is the snippet you just saw. However, please note that it is actually part of a full 6-part series. So you have the option to buy the whole course if you'd rather, or you can buy per episode, depending what is your preference. So thank you very much for that, Sandra. Also, I would recommend as well, the best thing to do as well is just go to our website, which is scrolling across the bottom of our screen on the courses tab. All of our products are listed there. So that would be probably the simplest way. Okay. Blessings, family. This is from the river. What is your view of how nature and wisdom work together to help us? Oh, good question. I like that question.
Mickey? We'll answer the question after.
All right,
after
okay.
Mickey. So
we'll come back to that. The river. Also, just want to give a quick shout out to Mickey Lee. Thank you so much for your donation. That's fantastic. Thank you. Your videos have helped me in my spiritual growth, from learning about obeah from Jamaica. Shout out, I'm from Jamaica too, to Vodun. Simply amazing. I'm so grateful. Your work encourages me not to be ashamed. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mickey. And I would also like to thank you for having the courage to go forward in your learning. Okay, because that's you. You have to express yourself as the powerful being that you are. There's nothing for you to be ashamed of. Go forward, access that power, and put it to good use for yourself, family, and the community at large. Yes, give thanks for your donation as well. We appreciate your support.
Thank you. Yes. And so the river, that's a very good question. So what is your view on how nature and wisdom work together to help us? So can I go when you
go? Feel free.
Yeah. Well, nature, you see, this is the thing. I am just completely always amazed by the different ways that nature can help us. So we're not only just talking about on a nutritional level. So obviously we know that by consuming certain herbs, plants, vegetation, we can nourish our bodies. We can get the nutrients and minerals that we need. So that's one way. Then you have nature in the sense that a lot of these plants, for example, you can dry them, burn them, have them in your home, which are used as in incense, which all have their own purposes, whether it's to cleanse your home, your space, whether it's to invite positive energies in. These are all things that nature can do. Then you have the medicinal side, where you may have a certain illness, a cough or a cold, for example, and there's certain plant medicines or just, that you can take that will help alleviate that. So, for example, things like ginger are great if you have, say, a sore throat or a cough, and it helps to build your immune system also. So these are all forms that nature helps and assists us. Then you have plant medicines in the sense that you can take these medicines that allow you to access different aspects of your mind that can enable you to tap into different realms, access knowledge, access healing ability. It can also allow you to not just heal yourself, but even your ancestral generations as well. So nature is amazing. And then if we take it to, which was last week's episode about signs and symbols and synchronicities, whereas if we start to observe nature in our lives and just to see when certain insects or animals cross our path, what messages do they have for us? And if we look, everything in life, as Dahlia mentioned earlier, we are a force of nature. Everything in nature has its purpose, has its own characteristics. So when we see these aspects within nature, they all have their own purpose. So, for example, I woke up this morning, I saw a spider in the bathroom. If we look at a spider, what do? They literally create their own realities. They build their webs no matter where they are. Whether their home is destroyed, they can literally rebuild and create their whole reality in pretty much a day. And so it just goes to show you that when you study the actual animal, when you watch nature and think, what am I learning here? What is nature teaching me? Then by looking and observing deeply, study that creature, there's a whole bunch of messages to come. So that's just a few aspects of nature and how, the wisdom we can work with nature to empower and take that knowledge on board to enhance our own spiritual journeys. So go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, give thanks for your question, the river. I think it's a beautiful question, and the way I will answer it is perhaps along the lines of how we approach this course that we're giving away today, which is the transformative self. Because when you talk about nature and wisdom, right? What is wisdom? Wisdom is collective knowledge that you're able to ruminate on. You're able to, it's constantly available to you. Your wisdom is your very consciousness. Yes, well, or rather an aspect of your consciousness, because you can think about many things. It's not everything that will be wise. Okay. I guess we can say wisdom is that aspect of what you think that allows you to do productive and self reaffirming things for your life, that aids your life to either become more comfortable or the people who depend on you to be more comfortable. But then again, what is this wisdom? What are your thoughts? Your thoughts are just electronic synapses. Yes, when we look at your thoughts in a MRI scan or any of these electronic devices, what they see is just burst of energy, like the electricity you see in a weather pattern or a storm. Okay, so what it is your nature exists also within your very head, right? That's your wisdom is these electrical impulses that you also find in the weather pattern. So it's just a reflection of each other. One is just a smaller microcosm of what you see in the external reality. So they're in a sense one and the same. There is no difference. Your wisdom is just an aspect of these electrical charges that is encoded with we could call it useful information. Yeah, because wisdom is useful information where you can have a stream of thoughts about nothing really. Okay, so that's how I would answer that. And I would like to see what Ramona Lovu has said. Thank you very much. I purchased the Transformative Self course, and I've been doing some of the rituals to connect to my original and my ancestors. I'm at a place where I'm wondering what might be next for me. I'm almost done with Malidoma Somi's first book. I would like to connect even more deeply to my ancestors and draw out from myself my next direction. What might you recommend?
I'm assuming that's supposed to say Ori.
Yes, that's beautiful, and thank you very much, Ramona, for doing that. And I love that you're doing the rituals. That's the other aspect that I may have forgotten to mention. So you're not just going to have an academic lecture, as it were, telling you this is scientific, so this is no. There, again, I think I may have said that there are practices that we find in the ancestral corpus that allows you to remember certain blueprints, to bring forward certain skill sets that you may have embedded in your DNA, because it might come from an ancestor who came before you. Yeah, and the practices you can do that awakens these memories in yourself. So it does both. We have the academic aspect, and then we look at the ritual practices that brings that forward. What might you we recommend, Ramona? I think if you're finding the rituals powerful for you, then the next, what I recommend from us personally would be, we have a course specifically designed for rituals, because ritual as an act is the way in which you release energy. Okay, and remember, as I just said, your very thoughts are just bursts of energy. So this is how you learn to redirect some of this energy to take other forms in your life. What you might call the manifestation of an objective. So we have a course called Living an African Spiritual Centered Life. It's a 3-part, very in-depth series. It teaches you it's strictly for those who want to live a life of ritual, because for any practitioner, really, from the minute you open your eyes in the morning, there are particular things that you can do to let your way, or your day rather, move in a particular direction. Okay, so that's what that course is for. V, if you can kindly put that on the screen for us, please. So I would say that this is perhaps the next step from us, what you might need to do to take it forward, because everything is in the actual lived practice as well. Okay, so that's what I'll recommend from ourselves. Would you recommend anything for Ramona?
For rituals,
any?
that definitely would be the course we would recommend, because that's what it's designed to do. We have our home studies course, which is quite comprehensive in the philosophies, and it ties many traditions together, showing you that ultimately at core they're the same. But the living African spiritual centered life is for those who have done the home study and they think, actually, I feel like I need more guidance on the ritual side. Definitely, that would be the course to do. So that would be a good choice. Okay, I'm just going to go through some of these questions. So Ronetta says, is there a huge difference between Santeria and Yoruba? And I would say no, in just what I just explained, that there are core understandings that are throughout these teachings, and we have different expressions as they have come out into the diaspora. So there will be some changes in names, some changes in some of the way it's expressed, but ultimately we're dealing with the same wisdom, the same essence, and this can be found across the board, not just with those two examples, but whether we're talking about the Zulus of Southern Africa or ancient Kemet, we're looking at the same principles that exist. So
Yeah.
do you want to add?
Well, the main, I guess, difference, and it's not really a difference, it's more so an extension, because that's what Santeria is an extension of the African corpus, but specifically with where Christianity, in this case, Catholicism to be specific, has been added on as a means by which our ancestors at the time needed to add that in order for them to their culture to carry on. So obviously things that develop over time creates its own I guess systems of hierarchy and others. So you might have also, there are also some deities in there that you might not find in Yoruba land. I also find some houses which strictly acknowledge and associate themselves that they are from Yoruba land. And then you also find some people who you can tell are very interested in keeping power for themselves. And then you find essentially what are elements of you could call it colorism, or you could call it just abuse of power, where they would like to prefer and say that Santeria is so different from its original Yoruba. Obviously, some rituals are, because you won't find the same type of heads you will find in Cuba that you may have found in Yoruba once upon a time. So yes, by all means, some expressions are different, but to try and divorce the two goes down the path of abuse of power, really, where people try and make themselves authority without giving respect to source. So that really is what that is. But no, there's no huge difference.
Okay, so Eric says, question, dealing with the law of mentalism, if our eyes see electrical forces and convert them into images, does what we see as physical truly exist? Excellent question. Do you want to go with that one?
Does it truly exist? It exists on one sense, because as you're perceiving it, you're making it real. And whether the reality is a permanent feature or a temporal feature as you're focused on it is another question. So it does exist, and at the same time it doesn't, in the sense that its existence is based on your perception and your adherence to it being real.
Yeah.
So it's as real as you make it.
Yeah.
That's the easiest and simplest way within which I can answer that question.
Yeah. And then leading into the whole principle of mentalism as well, as Dalian said, it's your mind and your perception. So we have the ability to create our reality because we believe it. And so based on our perception of reality will shape what we see, and we can all be looking at the same thing and see something different as well. So it's a very complex conversation and a very interesting question, but yeah, it will always fall down to your own perception. Definitely. Okay, so let me see.
I think you passed this one.
You can answer that. Lorraine Bodrick says, can you discuss about rites of passage?
Lorraine, good question. Rites of passage is pretty much like initiation systems. It's like how you go to school, from primary to secondary to college and then to university. You do your undergraduate and then you move up into, like, let's say, a postgraduate or a master's or a PhD. Rites of passage are designed as learning systems that can specifically rites of passage is to teach children how to become responsible adults and play particular roles in society to enable social cohesion. So that really is the clearest and simplest definition I can give you. I can add more, but I actually like the definition I said, but I don't even think I'll remember it. So yeah, in essence, it's a codified body of knowledge and practices that they teach young children to let them understand their roles that they can play in society to enable society to move forward cohesively. Yeah, so that's what a rites of passage are. So you have some for boys and you have some for girls, and so on and so forth.
I think that was well answered. Okay, so Minister Hippolyte says, what is the role of DNA in this particular system? I ask because the times I've been told I am most like my maternal grandmother, and in looks and behavior is frequent. She passed away before I was born. I was told about her but never knew her. How do we unlock the gifts carried on in this magical mix of DNA? So my answer to that is this is why ancestral reverence becomes important, and utilizing some of this spiritual knowledge we're talking about, the ritual practices. Even at the beginning, we were talking about this whole theme of this month is telling our stories. This is what unlocks that DNA memory within us. That's why it's important to be around those stories. So obviously you never met your grandmother. She was passed before you were born. It's the same situation with my grandmother. And she's actually the main ancestor who's around me, guiding me. So what will be important for you is to speak to people who did know her. Allow them to tell you stories about her. Find out more about her. Because even by hearing those stories, hearing people's experiences with her, that will awaken something within you. But also something you can do yourself if you don't have anyone to share those stories is just to directly make contact with her. Have some kind of prayer that you do for her, whether you have an altar set up, an ancestral altar, whether you have something that is significant of her. So if you don't have a photo or anything, candle, water, all of these things can be used to invoke her essence and say, grandma, share some stories with me. Make that connection with me. I would like to understand you more. And then you will start to experience a relationship with her in a way that you may start to get mental imprints in your mind. So you get ideas and inspiration of things to do. You may start to experience dreams where certain messages are coming forward. You may start to experience synchronicities in your life. So these are all different ways that your grandma can be invoked by yourself with intention.
Absolutely. The DNA was the role. It's like a library. It contains the memory and all the abilities of said person. So by you engaging in the rituals, as Verona has already said, you then start to access these memories, and they start to take form and shape in your behavior patterns and your thought patterns. So yeah, working at the ancestral altar is key. And I don't know if you were here at the beginning, but I mentioned that in this particular course, the Transformative Self, we look at the 5 aspects of yourself, one of which is your ancestral guardian or your ancestral spirit. And then we also look at how you extend that into your ancestor workings in part 5 of the course. Yeah, so yeah, absolutely. Everything Verona said will also aid.
Okay. So also thanks to Mickey Lee. I swear you donated before already. Thank you so much.
Yeah, wow, it's twice.
Can you provide any correlation between mental disorders and spiritual imbalances like bipolar disorder? I've come to learn everything is connected. Indeed, indeed. So we actually touch upon this in one of our video presentations called Mentalism in Indigenous African philosophy, I think. But anyway, yes, there is a correlation. And I would say that when we start to look at African teachings and the different philosophies, we will understand that everything is focused around the mind. So the whole principle of mentalism is so relevant across the entire continent, even though we tend to look at ancient Egypt for that knowledge, it's prevalent throughout. So, one of the things is understanding that people who do experience what we call, say, schizophrenia and things like that, often in many cases can represent somebody experiencing a spiritual awakening, where that person could be either, number one, they can be under spiritual attack. That is something as well. And then there's also cases where people are kind of destiny to be like a shaman, or as you would call them, or an akomfo or a sangoma, where they have certain spiritual gifts, but because those gifts haven't been acknowledged, or their life purpose is not being fulfilled in some way, sometimes these things can appear in a form of a mental breakdown or things of schizophrenia. So there's certain healing and acknowledgement that needs to be done to recognize what is going on. So ultimately, there are different spiritual frequencies and waves that are going on that for most people cannot perceive in our Western mind. But if we were to take it back to indigenous knowledge, they would say, there's a spiritual imbalance, and that is what is causing this so-called mental problem. So it's definitely something that, today's society we need to look at, instead of pumping people with medicines and all these drugs, and we're not looking at spiritual solutions in how we can deal with a lot of these mental imbalances.
Yeah, bless his memory. The ancestor Malidoma Some was known and credited with dealing with what we call schizophrenia. And as you know, in the Western tradition, once you're labeled schizophrenic, we're essentially saying you're mad. You're a person who's useless, who cannot seem to find coherence here. So you see, again, this is where the importance of, as Verona mentioned, we can call it mentalism, or just the ability to use your mind is important, because whenever you have a disharmony in there and you're not able to direct them cohesively and should I say productively towards an outcome, then what you end up with is basically chaos. and disorganization, and that can manifest as someone who doesn't seem to have it together. But in essence, really, all that is most likely happening is that there's too much flux going on in the energy patterns. Yes, and they what we possibly need to just do with them, and as Malidoma demonstrated, is to put them through a process of ritual, because one of the things that ritual does is it prescribes a set of actions and acts. It's also why we find that what Western science called neuro-linguistic programming, where their systems developed to program your mind a certain way, so that for some people, they might even think they don't experience what we call fear or pain anymore. It's not that they don't, but it's because you're able to shut off aspects of your mind from identifying certain things, which goes back to the earlier question of does the physical reality exist? Because you're able to shut them off. And once these things are no longer within the remit of your perception, if you will, it ceases to exist. So absolutely, once there's a spiritual imbalance, what we end up with is the flux. And as Verona said, sometimes it can be because sadly, somebody may have also sent you some negative thought patterns your way, aka a curse or a hex or whatever else that we call that. It can also be because you are not living your purpose, and that is manifesting as really uncomfortability in your life, and then it looks like you're not really there. Yeah, so you are right though, everything is connected.
Definitely. And I just thought of another thing as well. There can be spiritual entities that are on the person as well, which can cause that. Things that can create those states are if there's trauma that the person hasn't dealt with fully, things such as abuse of things like alcohol and drugs as well can leave you spiritually vulnerable for these type of entities as well. So there's a multitude of reasons why this can happen. So it definitely is something that really needs to be explored a lot more in depth, and I think a lot more spiritual solutions should be put in place rather than going straight for medication. So thank you very much for that question and donation, Mickey.
Thank you, Mickey. And also just a big thank you to Eric, and then we can move on to the next question. Wow.
Okay, so also I just want to give a shout out to Christina Roseman. Thank you so much for your donation. That's just been received through PayPal, so we appreciate that. Thank you. And if you do have a question, Christina, please do drop it in the chat as well, and we're happy to answer that for you. And also, thank you very much to Eric for sending a super sticker. We appreciate it. Thank you. All right. So the river says one of the key disciplines of most African spiritual systems is that I know of is good character is the foundation. Correct. How do you deal with challenges and difficulties and maintaining good character? Good question. I think it's something that you kind of continuously have to work at. I think for us, it's always been about how can we be of benefit to other people outside of ourselves. So, that's been one of our main passions for doing Ancestral Voices all this time, is that we felt that when we were coming up on this journey, we didn't have that support. We didn't know where to go. There was so much of a stigma that surrounded this topic. So I think it's about working towards the best interest for the greater good rather than self, and just kind of focusing on self. So just being aware of how you interact with people. Did you, exhibit good manners, good character, reciprocity, all of those type of things? Are they in your relationships? I think those things are really important. And just making sure that when people have an exchange with you, do they walk away feeling positive after that exchange? Was it an engaging experience? Was it something that there's some value in the exchange that took place? And I think it's about living life in towards those sort of terms and goals, to making sure that it's one that is not self-centered. So as I said, it's a daily thing to work on. Doesn't mean that there's not times when I'm out of my character and people upset me, but that's normal. That's who we are as human beings. But at the same time, it's about being able to hold ourselves accountable as well when we know that we haven't worked in good character.
No, absolutely. I think you've covered it well. For me, one of the things that I think about often and ponder on a lot is Professor James Smalls asking me the question that when I was interviewing him quite a while back now, and he says, how can you be a just person when you live in an unjust world? Yeah, this is it deserves serious consideration, because it tells us just exactly how non-unidimensional the notion of justice, or even again good character is, because what someone could benefit from as good character could potentially be damaging someone else. Yeah, so as Verona said, this is where the core thing that you have to take from that is beneficence. Yeah, and it's what determines your divine destiny across the African systems. How does this person, or how do you give value to others? And this doesn't mean also then that you start to live such that you're in a deficit while everybody's benefiting at your expense, because then that's not you've actually defeated the point of good character. So I don't know where most of our family is from. This way you perhaps, I don't know even if you're allowed to say this, you don't allow people to take liberties with you. I found a better word. I was about to use a P word, but I wasn't sure if it was too politically correct. So you can only be of service and benefit to others when you're first of benefit to yourself. So you cannot be putting yourself in a deficit so others can benefit. Yeah, some people go beyond this idea of humility and modesty and just allow people to just trample all over them. That's not good character. Excuse the French, that's straight stupidity. Do you understand? You cannot be of benefit to people when you're not being of benefit to yourself first and foremost. So it starts, for you to actually even exhibit that beneficence to others, you should be able to know what that looks like. And the only way you can know what that looks like is to first start it with yourself. So it's very core that we do not frame good character as just being something that you're constantly giving, because then what you do is you drain yourself too. Did you understand? So it has to be self-affirming and then also communally beneficial. Yeah, so that's what good character is. And as Verona said, it's not something you wake up every day and then it's good character time. You're smiling because the day is beautiful. Nah, there's some days you wake up and the challenges just knock you straight out. And then you have to find ways of getting over them. It's also why we have so many different elemental archetypes within African spirituality. They are not always there smiling, happy. There's some that you need to go to war. There's some too that you need to help you heal. There's some too that you need to do other things with. So within this convergence of so many different directions, what we seek is balance. Yeah, and this is the essence of good character: how you can be balanced in yourself and how you can also be of benefit to others.
Okay, that was good. And just to add to Dalian's point, that overcompensating is something that I've struggled with historically, and it's something that only I would say more recently that I'm starting to address, is to find my own balance, where you can try to help people too much, and if you leave yourself in a spiritual deficit, then you're not helping anyone. So yeah, finding that balance is definitely necessary. So this is the last question before we're going to go to our winner announcement. And Ramona says, last week Verona said she had some initiations. Would you share what they are for, and if it's not appropriate to share? So last week, I remember I said Dalian's been initiated. I haven't been initiated. What I said is I'm part initiated. My ruler of my head is Yamaja, and I do have some energies that I do work with as well that have been given to me by my Baba. But they are things that you can definitely feel free to email me about as well. But I haven't been initiated. That is actually Dalian.
Well, it's not fully. So you have the pot for Oshun, for Yamaja, and the Egbe.
And Egbe as well. So they're the three energies I'm working with.
But Ramona, feel free to send us an email, and then we can discuss further, because it sounds like you want to take your spiritual journey further, and perhaps we might need to have a deeper dive about exactly the direction in which you want to go. Okay, so we can also respect your privacy and direct you where best we can take you.
Sure.
Okay, so blessings. No problem.
Wow, Mickey Lee again.
Wow. Thank you, Mickey Lee. We really appreciate the donations, but please feel free to also ask questions as well. without the necessity for a donation to. We love it, hey, and we appreciate it.
We
But
do appreciate it. Thank you. It's
you
lovely.
feel free to also ask questions, and don't feel it to be an obligation in that regard.
All right, so I witnessed an imbalance in someone and I planned on consulting with my ancestors and guides.
wow.
You gave me clarity on what I picked up intuitively.
That's fantastic.
That is brilliant.
That's
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
Mickey
Mickey
Lee.
Lee.
Yeah, you blessed us 3 times today.
In
You know?
it. Thank you.
That's a beautiful blessing. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
All right, so peace and light. Amina says, I love your content. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's
Thank
actually
you,
been a
Amina.
beautiful show.
We also love your presence here. Thank you for sharing it with us.
All right, so I'm going to go to the question for anyone who did participate in this week's competition. What is the term used to denote spirit in the Akan language? All right, so who thinks they know what the answer is here? Oh wow. Okay. Ramona says it did not seem that YouTube would allow comment to go through without a donation. Okay, that's interesting. I don't know. It's never done that before, so not sure what's going on there.
Yeah, well, let's check because these platforms they keep changing rules and regulations. But no, now you can I believe you can post a comment.
You should be able to post a comment without that
donation. I think Mickey's just feeling generous. I would like to hope that she's been generous because we've had a big synchronicity today, and we're glad that we could synchronize with you and allow you to follow on your intuition.
Beautiful,
it's a beautiful thing. Thank you so much. You show that we're not special. You see, you got guided.
So Ajinim says the answer is Sunsum, which is correct. There's nothing come for it. So well done. That is the correct answer. So we are.
But it's not Ajinim that's won.
But it's not Ajinim that's won, by the way. He's just put that in now. So it's that obviously we've missed that time. The entries are already in here, but that is the correct answer. So thank you for that. Also, the River's given a donation. Thank you so much for the super sticker. Much appreciated. Thank you. All right. So we are going to find out who the winner is. So just to confirm, Sunsum is the correct answer. We did have a few people say Kra, which we know already is
your divine
destiny, or it can be called
Akan. So what we will do in Krabia is also your divine destiny. So Ajenin, please, this is and we have a lot of these and it becomes a bit problematic. Please, you can't put the answer onto the comment thread or on our Facebook page.
I recognize the name. He's already sent it.
He sent it himself. Yeah. Well, I hope you're getting picked up on here. That's fantastic. Yeah. So the email that you send it to is Ancestral Voices. Would you like to do it this week?
All right.
I did it last week. And then you just
hold it up in the air. So this one is pretty much stuck to my hand. So it says Latasha Robinson.
Hey, congratulations, Latasha
Robinson. The correct answer is Sunsum. So well done, Latasha. You will be winning the prize of Transformative Self Part 1, Be a Force of Nature. We hope you enjoy it. I'll be dropping you an email shortly to confirm that you are the winner. If you're watching live, even better. That would be fantastic. So Latasha Robinson is the prize winner with the correct answer of Sunsum. And also Mickey Lee has come back again and said it's been a sincere pleasure. Blessings. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. That's lovely.
So Ramona has a question which is beautiful. What's up there? Next Saturday.
Yeah, so if you can get your entry in for next Saturday, really. But to be honest, I normally do the prize draw results about 1 hour, 2 hours before we go live. So you do have a chance on the Sunday morning. But if I were you, get in there beforehand to avoid missing out.
So thank you, everybody. Yes, Natasha. Sandra Harper says, congratulations. Ramona, congratulations to Latasha. Thank you so much. I came on late, like 10 minutes ago. No problem, Ajeline. Please.
You can rewatch anytime. The video is available on YouTube and on Facebook.
So, Latasha, we're going to give you a little preview of the course that you've won so that you can get an idea of some of the content. and then we will close off with as we always do, we give you a heads up on next week's question.
Oh, you're
So
playing it again.
yes, so this is for those who weren't here before, and also for Latasha. This is the course that you have won today, and we hope you enjoy it, and we hope the knowledge is life affirming and life changing.
Thank you.
25 grams that disappears. And to date, modern science can't even tell us where it disappears to, why it disappears, or even what its constituent makeup is. Okay? And as I've already mentioned, in the African cosmological framework, we understand that missing energetic aspect to be what we can generally call our spirit self. Now, the inherent nature of human beings to always be in a transformative state references primarily that we are first and foremost spirit beings, beings of energy. So again, we are forces. And in each moment and second, we are agents of transformation for a range of systems within our very selves. The first one we can look at is the digestive system. Okay, and what the digestive system allows us to do is we're able to take in bioorganic mass that we call food, and that food then sustains our body. But then, as this food, we are drawing out its nutrients, it goes through this system, this process we call the digestive process or system, and eventually leads to what we call waste. And there's even a bit of a conundrum there, because what we call waste is actually treasure for the plants and the vegetation, the same thing that we rely on for sustenance. Yeah, we then give them a treasure that we call waste, and then that helps them to grow and then feed us back. So again, remember in the first slide, we talk about the universe existing in a state of symbiosis. Yeah, just right next to us, we do that all the time. Again, some things sometimes, perhaps because they're so obvious and simple, we just never really pick up on them. Yeah. So in each and every second, we already have this transformative state existing within ourselves that we call the digestive system. But that's not the only one. The one I personally find the most fascinating is what we call the neural network or the mind, right? And its connection to our circulatory network and the whole of our body, and in a sense, keeping our very bodies alive. What I like about the neural network is because it makes very clear our essential state of transformation. Because you see the image that we see here on the left, where we see all what looks like static and bits of bolts running through these ligaments or kind of cords and threads. That is the reality of your mind, the reality of your thinking. This is what's going on in your head as we speak. There is constant electric synaptic communication going on that then aids us. That A aids us in thinking, and B is transformed into the image on the right, what we call the shapes and the forms that we perceive in our external reality through these portals we call our eyes. Okay, what the actual shape and nature of our thoughts has no resemblance to what is then transformed into, because we see visuals when in reality there's only electricity really. So there's a transformation between the electrical communication from the left into a visual form that we perceive. That's another state of transformation. Something existing in one different state altogether and being transformed into another state. And this happens in perhaps the most important of our faculties, our mind. Yeah? It's that what gives us our ability to form a perception.
Peace and blessings, family. So that's Latasha Robinson. That's what you have to look forward to. Right after this show is over, we're gonna send you an email. Be a force of nature, because that's what we are effectively. in physical composition as well as in our energetic composition. Okay, so we'll leave you off. For those of you who've been here, as always, thanks for being here and your support, with a heads up for next week's question.
Okay, so question number 4.
What is the name of Amenra's mother? We're going to go back into Asian Africa and take some knowledge from there. And the question is simply, what is the name of Amenra's mother? This question is also very relevant to some of the discussion we've had today, as well as for the course giveaway next week. For the course giveaway, hopefully, actually, I hope Ramona Nlovu wins this, because it's part 1 of our course on ritual, living an African spiritual centered life. It's a 3-part course series, and the first one is called Actualizing the Self. This 3-part course series is strictly for those who now want to live with rituals incorporated in their lives. So from when you wake up in the morning, right down to what you do before you go to bed at night. It goes beyond the philosophical and intellectual discussions, and you actually start to implement your own practice in your life. And you can not only just do it for yourself, but also for your community, and get others also engaged in. And the question why we need to know who Amenra's mother is because that speaks to what we call the feminine principle, our ability to generate, our ability to create, our ability to manifest. Because Amenra is in the Asian Kemetic understanding, is the physical manifestation of the creative source, whereas his mother is the invisible aspect. Okay, so that creative or creation account, for those who know it, speaks to what we call a child being born in the womb. In that darkness, the child is created. Then we have the cell replication process, which we discuss in part 3 of the Transformative Self that Natasha has won today. So please, family, everyone, send your answers to the question.
Yeah, so please email ancestralvoices@longbelly.co.uk. Please do not hit us up on the social media sites. I saw lots of people doing that this week, and I was thinking, email, otherwise it will not be entered into the prize draw, even if you are correct. There is no way I'm going to be able to gather all the information up, and I wouldn't even know your email address, how to contact you anyway. So please just email the answer. And also, just to give you a heads up, we have a sale going on at the moment on our digital home study course, 20% off. And if anyone is interested in that, please do go enter that coupon code in the checkout so you can claim that nice discount and get the learning on. It is still Black History Month, but as you know already, we are Ancestral Voices. We are always doing this, 365. But there you go. There's an opportunity for discounted learning, which includes both of our documentaries and the book.
So for those of you who haven't done our home study course, how long is the sale going for?
The sale will end. I always get confused. So it's Monday night going into Tuesday. So technically it's midnight. So the sale ends midnight, the 22nd of February.
Fantastic. Is it only for the digital?
And it's for both. So it's for the digital and the physical package. So just to clarify that, we have this course available. Some people prefer to have online streaming so they can access it immediately because they don't have a DVD player. So we have that option. If you do that option, you'll get the digital versions of the documentaries plus a digital version of the book, which will come in PDF form. Then if you opt for the physical version, you will get DVDs, which you can play obviously at your own convenience, and you'll get a paperback book as well. So you have your choice. The code works for both. Remember to enter the code course20 to claim that discount. So that's pretty much us for today, isn't it? We'll be back again for next week Do you have a website? Yes, Amina, we have a website and it's scrolling across the bottom of the screen. I'll also add it again in the chat. But we can be reached at any time at ancestralvoices.co.uk, where we have a whole range of learning resources, documentaries, books, courses, articles, you name it, we have it. So please do. If this subject interests you, the kind of discussions we've been having, then you will definitely enjoy our website. So we'll be back next week for the fourth week. I can't believe how quickly it's gone. It's
The month
flown,
is
isn't
over.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that will be the final one for Black History Month. So, thank you all for the way you've participated in the challenge. We appreciate that. And we also love the way that the knowledge has been rotating around. There's a lot that we've been picking up, and from your comments, we can tell there's a lot that has been happening for you as well. So give thanks, So the question again, what is the name of Amenra's mother? For the last, we will be giving reverence to the divine force, because we all have the ability to generate and create.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you just want to remind them of the course, the winning prize for next week?
Sure. So the course you'll be winning is part 1 in our 3-part series called Living an African Spiritual Centered Life. This course is strictly about the rituals that you use to actually manifest the philosophies that, if you've done, let's say, our home study course already, where we go into the philosophies that guide African knowledge systems, and you actually now want to see it in action, then Living an African Spiritual Centered Life is for you. And whoever wins question 4, gets the answer right, and is selected, you will have part 1 for free. The course is called Actualizing the Self. So that's what that is.
So anyone who's serious about taking their spiritual journey deeper, getting into ritual, feeling confident in ritual, because a lot of us kind of lack that initial confidence. We're like, is what I'm doing, is it working? So this will help alleviate all those fears and give you some guidance and support. This lecture is hosted by Dalian, and he will be supporting you throughout the process. So it's a really good lecture for those who want to get more on the practical side. So thank you. Ajanem says, thank you for your content. Thank you very much. We've enjoyed it. We've enjoyed the lovely audience. Thank you, Amelia. It has been great. I've enjoyed it too. So thank you very much. Everyone have a wonderful weekend. Have an uplifting, positive vibes, and we will see you again on Sunday.
Thank you. Janine, please send an email for this one. Yes. I guess, I'll give a little hint in case it's too difficult. If you download chapter 1 of our book, the chapter 1, you if you have a quick read through there, you might find the answer in there. Yeah, I think for those of you who've been here, let's give you a little incentive. Yeah, so the book is in that part 1, you might find the answer there. Okay. Thank you all for being here.
Katina.
Thank you, Katina. Yes. I see you progressed. You're on like part 2 of the course now. Yeah. So remember the moon, we've now gone into the waning phase. Okay. So please put those rituals to use. Let's get into some clearing, some shaking up. Yeah. And then clear our path and move forward. Thank you so much, Katina. Good to see you again.
All right, so Ajanim says he will, so that's fantastic. Universal Force says thank you. So much love, everyone, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Yeah, see you next week.
Thank
Bye-bye
you.
now.
Bye.